Hello. There are retired Weathersfield police chiefs involved with untimely deaths years apart, and use/s of it recorded also on social media. And apparently, demonstrably, we have the sense and sensibilities, to use Jan Austin's phrase, but for reality of the people with the town offices, the Board of Education, the town meetings. They have the government access television, names at and next to and conjunctive to their location. Increasingly, the Connecticut judicial branch offices and Connecticut corrections offices at the town line, Hartford, Weathersfield, and the judicial branch offices in Weathersfield, in conjunction to them and to that, like all along Route 3. Multiple police departments have collusions on my street with a bunch of people from other areas. Kids, when I was a kid and when I was an adult, and adults tied to a Leahy family involved with the intelligence community at Hartford Hospital, including foreign and domestic military involved with the World Trade Center predicate acts and fake transcripts into databases. And they have patients that they put where they force mental evaluations. They have patients that put fake transcripts and fake conversations with patients and about people's relatives, like pretend that I said about one of the kids in the schools. Increasingly, people tied to people with the name O'Connor and all along Route 175 and Main Street in conjunctions to it and to that, like conjunctions to Wells Road, Route 175. Part of it is named Wells Road. They even have the difference of a family named Wells. Sought me out. I didn't respond. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with other people involved with them with federal evidence as crimes, criminally foreign influence uses of the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices, and stacking fake things in databases. Then needing to pretend others, so starting things, and then lying about what came first. Increasingly, people tied to a Kevin Dillon have the Weathersfield Community Center involved with them, with the World Trade Center attack, and after it to hide that. And their roles next to the networks intercities. Some Mendez police attached me to fake transcript with him at the Mendez. Reportedly, he has a brother named Eric Mendez, but and reportedly his name is Janito. I never had a word of conversation with him. And he switched the name all to culture. In other words, he put me in fake conversations, and they have in Saudi Arabia involved with them, with that. And with people named Scalora, intercities and interstates. They had time collusions with the morning of the World Trade Center attack in Manhattan, the night before it. In other ways, short term before it and long term before the World Trade Center attack. In other words, I was in the night before it too in the hotel there. They have a Claudia Scalora involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, too. And the court itself, from inside the court, was proven after the attack. The morning of the attack, the panel of judges had been shown legal papers that had been timely brought to the court and time-stamped on time. And then from inside the court before the World Trade Center attack, insidiously from inside the court, they changed the time-stamping on those legal papers. As people increasingly collusion/s against me before and after the World Trade Center attack. That's one of the things that motivated them to put me in fake and change conversations about my father's legal cases. All sides of his criminal and civil cases. He had a civil pro se RICO suit against former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants and their family members before and after the World Trade Center attack. They have collusions with Hartford courts, switching names and forging names, and their intimate ties, foreign and domestic military involved, including Saudi Arabia. All sides don't know what. All sides are trying to force, trick, hurt, and persuade, guilt, blame the other things others themselves, torture anyone who tries to have a quality of fact treatment nature necessary. These are also some black KKK, Confederate flag themed, Latino themed people implied that they were directed to be guised as that, as their roles with intelligence with Central Connecticut State University and UConn and Trinity College, connected families that have also collusion/S with intelligence families that used to live with near me. And they increasingly have people planting evidences on all sides of my house. And, you know, I only want the best for my neighbors. And you can't force people to follow mandated law. And people want to just ignore things. That the law mandates that we're not supposed to ignore them. And then they want to speak about behavior anyway, incapable of it. So then they want to have experts settle it. The experts are recorded, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Collusion/S2 no, even with black pupils, whites of eyes. Our founders recorded for us to have clearer than day understood. They had it declassified. How no one had free speech. There were all kinds of crazy laws against every human difference to keep everyone, and they measure and maintain everyone's roles. Self-value too. Or you're speaking, that's an expert at the campus. These are all campuses shared with a whole bunch of different countries here and there. The same crackpot A through Z, blaming other things other than themselves, but a hyperforeign cause them. These are not, we know this on a mass scale, but see, people jump into our conversations dishonestly. The ones with the networks and the exceptions. They have all these abridged takes on the Constitution that they can't defend syntactically online. They have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents regarding such and the motivations of it. The breaching method already showed them that they need to hide where can be discerned about the value of that and about the value of their nature. The courts have stated criminal insidious natures of positive treatments and negative treatments. You guys are sick. The people countering the city's voices, saying that there's no representation of them legitimate, honest, real. And the people and themselves too, though, countering the people countering them. They're in a shell game. And with the exceptions, in other words, use tactical terror from how nature uses exceptions. Because they're already shown, the breaching method showed them they are on a mass scale, all ages and natures of interbranch intelligence, foreign and domestic. And then further, how they are shared that way. The breaching method has them shared. We have been systems tactical terror from the one that generates totally different individual species bodies, birds, fish, and each one of them made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. So we could discern the individual identity of value progression. That isn't them, it is not us, but it is all things anyway, and it is hyper additionally more. We are distinct from the other species bodies, but we are non-distinct from them too. And we are simultaneous with them. So we can see this distinct identity of hyper-simultaneous nature, so to speak. So they're preventing, I barely had conversations with people ever in my life, in my family. And those are ones that they've been trying to establish. All courts already showed that the courts, all sides of criminal and civil cases, the courts, the police forms, their sources, mayors, politicians of other lay, their sources, everyone, they've been shown fake things since founding. You guys have self-value roles, replacing what James Madison's plan was about, how they used it, how they were forced to. No one had the rights to there were overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, international companies, internationally monitored conversations with the groupings of that, all that together at the same time. You need to hide, measure, and maintain everyone's collusion/S and pretending other to an extent where that body was sensed and it was adapted to, even if it was a majority of people, even if it was everyone, including any grouping of countries while locations, areas, or states are still self-valuing. For example, blaming and having blamed other things, others, or selves for what the hyperforeign breaching method caused. You don't have to call it a hyperforeign breaching method. If you deny that American history is about a breaching method, you're going to have inherent too active, too progressive to your logic, your nature of logic, demonstration / S of the same. We can't have, see, it's the experts on the names of the people, the sciences, they can't afford to have discern what is proper for their voices individually grouped in together. The nature debate, everyone says, oh, we'll leave it to the courts. That's why they're not identifying themselves. They're only 3 branches of government, and then further their state offices. The Connecticut State Judicial Branch offices and the corrections offices, they're increasingly involved with wire crime acts and methods, whole predicate acts methods, falsified police reports, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake motivations for it. Offensively, there's a guy with a red pickup truck on Facebook, involved also with Facebook with people with the name Wells and Wells Road, 175. A bunch of people tied to 175 are intelligence families that their whole careers were kept criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, and they have roles with years apart, proven child abusers, leaders, and kids, and more then and now involved. And what are they doing with the town lines and the corners of streets, and making confessions on having made them on Facebook? Facebook has all kinds of collusions with different kinds of pilots, foreign and domestic Navy, Air Force, Marines, involved right on Facebook, little fake punks. It's nothing against the Marines. You should pull them out. And I don't even know all their names. Get them on paper. Or have them fight. Want to box? I'll spot them the weight, too. You got a bunch of fake tough guys. And with the Wethersfield police, with collusions with this. A Joshua Julian and a Joshua Schumacher have roles with Wethersfield police with the campuses and with the police Facebook page and the Britain Superior's Facebook, the Britain Superior Court's Facebook page, with a whole bunch of people tied to the name Kerr, also with the Britain Superior Court confessions and an officer, Jerry Miller. They have roles planting evidence on all sides of my house, including on Facebook, including as their collusions with people with the drugs, countering task force, involved with untimely deaths with the people selling the drugs, and then framing other people. There's an officer, Floyd, in other words, who's involved with this police chief, Cintron, and the Dillon family, and people on all sides of my house involved with sexual and medical offenders, Syntax. And in other words, these are people I never even had a conversation with. They're repeating fake things. They do these tricks too, because there's an ongoing aggression too. There are people involved with violence. We're gonna have to get it settled on paper. They're trying to look for other ways, because these are multiple police departments involved with the House / S involved with their extended family members and the people involved with the World Trade Center attack, timed right outside my hotel room, and I was there alone, and my parents were in their own hotel room the night before the World Trade Center attack. And that was in Manhattan, New York. Increasingly, WFSB, too, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, and intelligence next to them have collusions with a bunch of people in the Britain Superior Court tied to child abusers, leaders, and kids. And the Subby Bajario is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by a whole bunch of people involved with him like that when he was a kid and now as an adult. With the Britain Superior Court, people next to all sides of Central Connecticut State University, and people involved with a Jose Gill and a Kyle Gill, and their roles with foreign and domestic intelligence families and the intercultural narratives. They're speaking their bodies of law. They're involved with the state police, intercities, and stuff like that. But they can't speak for the law. In other words, I recorded them with whole predicate acts with facts method. I recorded them recording themselves and pretending other is what's recorded. And they're also putting the agencies use the right to lie on a mass scale. Their standards and precedents off the records. They just show fake transcripts, and then they have the people go fishing the different, and then they play the shell game with their collusions and with the exceptions, the different networks. So their Facebook pages too, But the Whiting Forensics has collusions with them too, hiding and changing and faking what's typed to judges as ones with other judges in the state judicial branch offices, corrections offices, the difference of guilt there next to it, or people just traveling by it, or conjunctions to it, other natures of it, like all along Route 3 conjunctions to that. And Weathersfield Pizza House has collusions with wire crime acts and methods designed to make it look like I had a conversation ever with a Stephen Stocko. I only had one sentence to him in my life. I said, "Is Maria there?" He hung up the phone and called the Weathersfield police, and they told me not to call there back again. I never saw Maria Pizzino on a campus in my life. This Weathersfield Pizza House is next to the state judicial branch offices, increasingly with people tied to a O'Brien family, an Andrew O'Brien, a Tim O'Brien, a Dennis O'Brien, involved with multiple police departments, and a house near me named Cololo. Also brought up by people with Sandy Hook, involved with some sexual medical offenders of kids, and people next to body dumping spots relative, years apart, where there were time use /s, that, murders, untimely deaths. My past neighbor made confessions and demonstrations, verbally, non-verbally, about roles with an untimely death at Trinity College, and people along Jordan Lane, and with the associated with an elderly home there, and 3 spots at the end of the Burnham Turnpike, and increasingly people with Weathersfield police involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with this Joshua Schumack and his mother, and people next to where the Weathersfield Police Department is now, and where they used to be. And they have rules intercities and interstates with people, not legitimately, with their uses of other people's names. That Joshua Schumack went out of the way to put fake evidences. So these are people that plant evidences with the foreign and domestic interbranch families at the same time with overt criminal enterprise. They're showing they need to hide live aggressions preemptively, actively, and to hide things to come. What, where, and how they are used remotely with names on all sides of criminal civil cases, the news, the interbranch, the intelligence at the same time, with the same sequence shifts, federal evidences, crimes, illusions, predicate acts, collusions, quality of fact, human nature, forced, criminally foreign influence, collusion, /s, and with names at and next to body dumping spots, at and next to the prisons involved with the crime scenes to force it too. They were the prisons associated with a principal upskirt nature. They were involved with worse, forcing that too, forcing digital crimes with the campus. Before that, Whiting Forensics has collusions with a principal upskirt nature and people named Bob Chase. Weathersfield Police recorded, confessed, and demonstrated firm. People associated with the FBI have people named Eric Mendez, also involved intercities with them, and spots next to the networks, like Fox Connecticut News has an Eric Mendez involved with his brother, who attached me to fake conversation with him at the Weathersfield Police Station when I was an adult, and they forced Saudis to collusions with them. I don't even know all the Saudis' names. It's also their roles with a bunch of intelligence with Elm Street and Rock Hill and Weathersfield since I was a kid. Involved planting evidence on my street, fake ties, fake nature ties to me, with the same house /s involved doing that consciously, with a whole bunch of other countries, overt criminal enterprise, private ones, and terrorists, and time collusions with them, even a bunch of ways. And they motives, they're trying to pretend motive means what it does. If you don't know who did something, okay, well, let's figure out who would have a motive. That's one reason you would be right to use a motive. In other words, you guys are hiding your motives too, and the motives of others with black pupils, whites of eyes, and how a breaching method reassigned what nature communicates with it when nature is not only itself as criminal insidiousness nature. I am not a lawyer. We have means of many Americans have means to discern, because we have black people's whites of eyes. We have to discern worse than criminal incompetence and collusion /s that the interbranch, and that the corrections officers and what they evolved from, and that the judicial branch offices and what they evolved from, And the differences of guilt there, or conjunctions to it or to that, are manifest because use of location slash S everywhere the human species body has a body, they are manifest. It is why the suburbs look almost exactly alike in America and in Russia and Ukraine, even though they were designed for torture, extortion, slavery method that was entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies, sickly distinctly against every human difference, male, female, child, adult, every weakness and every strength. Criminal and ceaseless natures of positive care about it, and negatives about it, with syntax, therefore physics. So we have a bunch of people only capable of going, where equality, fact, treatment, nature is necessary. So the Wethersfield town offices, first, all they have to do, see, evil people would not stay evil if you wouldn't allow that, keeping the post block. Oh, because we don't want hateful comments. If you before the people make hateful comments, the interbranch and the ties to them were doing sick things. These are criminally foreign influence uses of databases since before computers, before our founders were born, before religious messengers were born. The campus's Marcia system of the republic for which we stand, this ancient republic already became forced, persuaded, more and more incapable. There are proofs from off of it, influence more and more incapable of affording to have discerned short words with convictions proper by the identity the sciences share, individually grouped and together. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling are grouped by nature itself. And they're about fighting by the rules. But the rules have been abridged since semi-ancient times. So we have not discerned how there is one way to fight where everyone wins, including those who lose. Otherwise, we discern. And caring shows us, nature shows us means out of nowhere, even greater, to make everyone win. It's where evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere come from best. But we have to check if we're making criminal insidiousness natures of positives out of negatives, or we're making hyper positives out of negative. For example, so to speak, nature shows us that there is a difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positives like peace, or criminal insidiousness natures of fact-treatment nature like courts that want to speak about order through and as systems tactical ulterior from natures. These, as radicals, want to call other people radical. They're criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. What's radical is self-valuing roles, as roles, let alone self-value roles being used remotely by a hyper-foreign, but as systems tactical ulterior from the one that shows us it's generating all group differences, or it shows us we're using a system abridged from its own that's also positive onto itself, that which is generating totally different species, individual species, bodies, birds, fish. So each made up of a whole bunch of individual bodies. So we can see the individual identity of value / value progression generating all things, and how the parts of itself come with the individual identity of value progression that we are shown, because the rest of its complete nature is too great and is too finite simultaneously / hyper simultaneously to fit with with its state and nature of relationship to itself, where and how it is juxtaposed with matter distinctly from where and how it is not. And in other words, English was revealed to be taught this way. The parts of speech of English grammar, and there are proofs of other ancient languages the same way. And English was, in other languages, were reliant upon difference, tactical, valuing. Also, how we don't agree about the name of God, because it's about the hyper invisible but still discernible. How it is distinctly. It is functional being hyper invisible but still discernible, for example. But if we're speaking about a name, that's a part that we're speaking about something invisible but still discernible. It's like the parts of speech, a subject. We could only appreciate subjects individually grouped and simultaneously to an extent. And with where and how we could appreciate and observe that, we could also observe how it comes with with that identity of value progression that is too finite for us to appreciate. I mean, except for its way. While it is not present, but it is anyway. And what is too great to be and with active relativity beyond that. In other words, there is a means to hypercorrelation. English is about correlation / hypercorrelation. And everything is about this. It is an identity of hyperorder. That is the order of the finite. It is the difference of that or how it is itself, the difference as the order of what is active or grouped. Again, it is generating all group differences and is showing us how there are individual species bodies of individual bodies because there is this individual identity of value progression. That is the identity of all things at once, while not, but anyway. The way it is functional being hyper invisible distinctly from how it is invisible but still discernible. So the parts of speech are about the invisible but still discernible. But where and how and why, we need to appreciate more than one verb, more than one name for a verb, such as a predicate, or such as a present participle or past participle. This is we can appreciate and discern the identity, the body of the hyper invisible but still discernible to an extent, which comes with its complete identity relationship to itself, and the value of that equally increasing as value. Relativity / hyperrelativity to its system here, with a special difference or a special difference in the value of its system. Nature's is forced from here. Nature has has a nature, and you have a nature. Nature's nature is the science of this course. So, but in other words, there's a reason they say, there's a reason there was validity given to that old saying, sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me. I forgot how it goes exactly. But the point is, they're not allowed to hide mandated law because people were hateful. But they've been doing that. They're not allowed to pretend, because we're judges. They're not allowed to do that and hide what came first. And their delusions. That's why they're refusing to identify themselves legitimately and to branch. So they have dishonest and delusions relative to with their takes on why and how. They have the government television blocking posts from people from being able to type. And then on Judge Napolitano's website, people saying nonsense. I'm speaking about World Trade Center predicate acts. WFSB put me in fake conversations with themselves and with others, fake ties to doctors as a kid and as an adult. And they're pretending my family said that. That's not true. They're trying to force me to have more a conversation with my family members. I didn't even tell some of my family members I was in the World Trade Center, and they weren't next to it. I'm not in the World Trade Center, in the hotel next to it, and then the court next to it. the Ninth Circuit Court, the morning of the World Trade Center attack. You don't just attach people to faked and changed conversations about that. People who recorded you and guys involved with the former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk, and his co-defendants, their family members, all sides of their deposition, all sides of criminal and civil cases, other depositions. People all along Route 3 involved with DACA 2, there are proofs, with a whole bunch of countries pretending they could speak for the law. A bunch of sick fakes together, right through world wars. There are proofs that people with psychiatry and the foundation of it, all sides have self-value collusions right through it. Need to pretend other. Use all truths to pretend other with. Like they did with the taxes, with narratives regarding what caused people to fight for American Revolution and the Declaration of Independence, the Constitutional Convention. James Madison had to counter-extort everyone. There were all kinds of crazy laws. And then further with the international companies, further with international countries, sensibilities hyper additionally known to people let know. And overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists originally still only capable. The breaching method propagated that since before modern religious messages were born. And since before America's founders were born. And the only one we know the name of specifically, James Madison, and his plan replaced. His plan was replaced right from the answers. They're using the words of what people said, leaving out how they had to and why they had to pretend to lie about their actual motivations. That was all declassified for us. Even George Washington was extorted and counter-extorted. You guys won't even allow people to be honest about George Washington's extortion. And you won't be honest yourselves. You guys were directed to be honest about the extortion of George Washington. That's what he gave for his reason. For roles with the Declaration of Independence, the American Revolution, and the Constitutional Convention. In other words, and no one, and still they didn't have free speech. Our founders and our president / even once James Madison was then a president / chief also, he still didn't have free speech. They had this declassified for themselves and for us all the reasons why and how. We're supposed to understand that. Instead, the names of the people of the sciences have used their knowledge of good and evil to make self-aware use of location /s, and then hyper additionally the campuses, places with databases, campuses or places with databases that are hyper additional from the way the breaching method used and uses them. It measures and maintains you all. Self-value collusion /s replacing what you did not want to replace since you were little kids. Like when you had black pupils, whites of eyes, and means to discern. That still slavery is not being taught about. The breaching method against Native Americans, the breaching method against the colonists, every human difference. That's not being taught about, honestly. And then when the nature debate contains quality aspects of nature, of principal treatments that are criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw. If everyone followed mandated law, this would have surfaced. Please follow mandated law, news, do what's right. It's not too late. I can't get them on paper into branch. They've been using intercities, Weathersfield Police Department, and the Judicial Branch Office and Corrections Office have wire crime acts and methods, and a bunch of people from other locations involved with predicate acts on my street and the parallel streets. And they'll all tell you this. The ones pretending other in the background too. Get them on paper, one name and sequence. Ooh, don't fake ties to me.